Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conference for a very long time, and to be on this stage is truly an honor. So let's get right into it. We'll take a look at my first slide here, and as we do that, I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes. I know it's annoying, and no, nothing is going to pop out at you. Everybody close your eyes. I'm going to read what's on this slide. Tracking on a heading of 173, we've taken wing at 27,000 feet above the slight undulation of emerald green rainforest and woven seams of threaded streams, all merging into well-defined rivers. A transparent glaze of sheer ice crystals paves a thin path for our gleaming machine. And in the distance, slightly southeast of our current position, rises a towering mass of cumulus clouds over the seemingly endless blue sea. Jagged around its low-slung edges, visibly building with eruptive force to the upper levels, close to 45,000 feet. Surrounding the impending storms are lucid lavender and creamsicle orange skies, streaked with faint paintbrush strokes that have graced our windscreen with an artist's touch. Keep those eyes closed. As we fly over northern Brazil, we're on course for another 2 hours and 20 minutes before a mid-afternoon arrival in Natal. Scanning engine readings, the hum of the turbine blades of our PT-6 march a steady beat that instills more than just confidence, it instills determination. 4 days into a flight around the globe, our clean, fledgling airplane seems as eager to track the equator as we are. Surrounded by modern technology, the feeling of golden age flight still echoes in the cockpit. Onboard our aircraft, a route, a means to arrival, fuel in the tanks, and an engine that is the heart of our Stirling machine. Enigmatic destinations with a touch of the unknown fill the next 12 landing spots, stories of a global circumnavigation in the making. Now open your eyes. I wrote those words from the cockpit of the Pilatus PC-12NG, which was the single-engine airplane that I flew around the world. We departed on June 26th of 2014, so just a couple months ago. I just got back on the ground. Head still totally in the clouds. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Flew for 18 days, flew a span of 28,000 miles, flew through 14 countries. I never want to apply for visas in 14 countries ever, ever, ever again in my life. And along the way, our route was 80% over water. As you can imagine, having only one engine flying 80% of the globe over water can be a little unnerving. We had a turbine engine, very strong, very reliable. Proud to say that during the entire 18-day trip, we never had one single malfunction on the aircraft engine or airframe. So a total success there. Here's an artist's rendering of the route that we flew. We flew across the United States. I say we. I was captain of the aircraft. I had a co-pilot with me for camaraderie, for conversation, and for safety purposes, because two brains are absolutely better than one when it comes to something this daunting. We started out in Oakland, California, there at the center of the map, because that's where my namesake, Amelia Mary Earhart, departed from. We left from the very same hangar that Amelia left from in 1937. When the hangar door opened that morning and we set off on the flight, boy, I tell you, there were some butterflies and goosebumps, and I really felt like Amelia was there in the cockpit with us. We'll talk a little bit more about the route as we go, but first I'll give you a little bit of background on myself and kind of where this crazy idea came from. Well, my name is Amelia Earhart. No, I didn't change my name. No, I'm not related. Yes, I am a pilot. The question of, are you a pilot? You're named Amelia Earhart was something that I literally got every single day of my life from the time I was about 18 years old. And when you hear that over and over and over again, the first thing is, it gets really annoying. And the second thing is, when you say no and you see that disappointed look come across people's faces, kind of makes you wonder, maybe I should start looking into this. Maybe I should take a flight lesson or two. So I called up Mom and Dad and I said, look guys, you named me Amelia Earhart. Thanks for that. Roll of the eyes. Yes, she was an amazing person, a great role model, all of that, but I didn't appreciate it until much, much later in life. But at age 21, I said, Mom, Dad, can you pay for the first flight lesson? And they said, sorry, things are really tight. You're going to have to do it on your own. So I was working a couple jobs at the time, waiting tables in Boulder, Colorado, University of Colorado grad. That's where I love living there. I still live there today. Went on that very first flight lesson after I saved up enough cash, and at that point I was hooked. And that is when I fell deeply in love with aviation, much like my namesake. Back in 1936, Amelia said, "My ambition is to have this wonderful gift produce practical results for the future of commercial flying and for the women who may want to fly tomorrow's planes." And that, for me, was my call to action. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a writer. And now it turns out I'm an earth rounder, because you never know where that path is going to lead. Now, this is my background. Weather lady extraordinaire. I can walk, I can talk, you never know when I'm looking at the screen, right? So my background in television news led to a career in meteorology. I flew in a helicopter for 4,000 passenger hours, running the camera and doing the eye in the sky thing. But at one point, it started to get a little boring. Getting up at 2:30 in the morning also got a little old. So we went past that and started to do a lot more exciting things, like fly upside down. I was looking through my pictures the other day and I started to notice a theme here. I just went flying with Kirby Chambliss off the coast of Southern California last week, and then I thought, well, gosh, there's another one. So as you can see, I like to be upside down in unusual spots. So let's talk about the flight around the world. After 10 years in television news, a pilot's license and instrument rating, and now working on a commercial license, a multi-engine rating, and hopefully a type rating in something like the Gulfstream really soon, because that would be awesome. I started to think to myself, okay, Amelia set off on this flight in 1937. She broke a lot of records in the meantime, but she disappeared trying to do something that she was ultimately insanely passionate about. She wanted to be the first woman to fly around the world. She had her navigator, Fred Noonan, with her, but very, very limited technology. We're talking celestial navigation, using a point on the horizon along with a celestial body to determine her point in space, a latitude and a longitude. And so no wonder they got lost. It was so limited in terms of how they knew exactly where they were. So she made her way about 80% of the way around the world, eventually disappearing outside of Papua New Guinea, somewhere near Howland Island. So I made it my goal. Go to work in the morning, do the TV thing, make a living, knock it out of the way, but then after work, it was time to get to work on my real passion. And that's where flying came in. So a year and a half ago, I started planning a flight around the world. I didn't have an airplane, I didn't have an extra dollar to my name, but I decided, let's do this. This is what it all came down to. This is the aircraft, the Pilatus PC-12 NG. It's a $4.5 million Swiss-built aircraft that is very reliable. I think it's pretty gorgeous. I called up the manufacturer of the aircraft and I said, "Pilatus, my name is Amelia Earhart. I want to fly around the world. I want to do it in your airplane." And I'm assuming they thought it was a prank phone call. But after meeting and going into the office and saying, "Please listen to me, I have a business plan. I promise you're going to get your name out there in so many different ways. Let's do this." They said yes. 21 other partners came on board and said yes because they support aviation. Now, as we go through here, you're going to see some of the pictures from the flight. The most beautiful, insanely colorful views that you can ever imagine over places like the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the entire equator. The sunsets last so much longer up there. The views that we saw took us to tropical locations like the Seychelles and the Maldives. We flew through Tanzania, we flew over the summit of Kilimanjaro. I got a tweet from a friend who was on top of the mountain as we flew over out of Tanzania on our way over Kenya. Amazing, amazing connections were made on this flight around the world. And knowing what Amelia saw back in 1937 was similar to what we were seeing in our airplane, minus all the digital displays and beautiful technology in our aircraft. But what it was really about was getting women interested and involved in aviation. So recently I was in Geneva, Switzerland. I was at an aviation event and I was standing next to the airplane. We were doing a photo shoot. I was wearing a great dress. I was wearing heels because it was a business conference. Standing on the steps of the airplane doing the photo thing. And a gentleman walks up to me and he says, "Ma'am, I see you're standing next to this pretty airplane. Would you like a pilot in your photo with you?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Yeah, well, you're taking a picture with this plane. Do you want a pilot in the photo with you?" And he said it even slower the second time. I said, "Sir, there is a pilot in my photo," and I kid you not, he looked inside the plane. The point is, there are not enough women in aviation. Right now, 4% of pilots are women. 12% of student pilots are women, so we are trending in the right direction, and that is where I intend to make a big impact. The pictures here that we see, they just keep getting better and better. You know, everything that we did around the aircraft, we would do it ourselves. We were maintaining the engine, we were doing our pre-flight checks, we were, fueling up ourselves. We had an interior tank on that plane that got our range up to 2,500 nautical miles. So it really was a work of art when it all came together very smoothly, very successfully. Not only did we have to track the weather and on the meteorological and climatological side of a flight around the world, which is best done in June and July because you get that afternoon convective heating over the ocean, you start to see those rising clouds really early in the morning, but you also have to track volcanic activity. And this was a volcano in Papua New Guinea. It's a beautiful sight, but if it were to have been active when we flew over, we'd have to divert around an ash cloud just like we would have to divert around a big thunderstorm. And that's something you really don't want to do in an aircraft. Think Iceland in the news. I'm sure you heard that recently. The views across the South Pacific were just absolutely stunning. You can see there tiny little chains of islands there, where in the middle of the islands, the water is about 5 feet deep, and fishermen walk around with big spears, and they come out with a stick full of fish, and then that's what the whole town eats. Beautiful people, beautiful personalities, a little bit of conflict. We were met at gunpoint in Papua New Guinea by about 10 armed guards who never once looked me in the eye. That entire 12-hour debacle that went down, we sat in the aircraft for 4 of those 12 hours. They never even acknowledged me as a pilot, well, I should say as a person. That was an awkward situation. But this right here, got about 2.5 minutes left. This right here was the crux of the trip. This is Howland Island. This is where Amelia intended to land her Lockheed Electra 10E back in 1937. The US government built a runway for Amelia and some other military operations. The runway's not even there anymore. This was taken just a couple months ago. The runway's not there because certain times of the year, it's underwater. No one lives here. The island is less than a mile across. And when we flew over this island, I tell you, I had so much emotion. I was shaking, I was dropping cameras, and I'm flying the airplane, and Shane says to me, just calm down. And so I just set all the technology down, and I just circled around the island. This is what Amelia wanted to see with all of her heart, with all of her soul, with all of her being, and I got to witness it with my own eyes as her namesake. So that was very, very special. This gentleman right here was in Oakland at the airport, standing at the hangar in 1937 when Amelia departed. He was there when I departed. He was also there when I returned. He was standing there waiting on the ramp by the hangar, holding a big bouquet of roses, standing next to my mother. And after I hugged my family, he came up to me and he said, Amelia, I have been waiting 77 years to see Amelia come home. He gave me a huge hug, and he says, thank you for bringing her home to me. So in my own little way, I feel that I have closed Amelia's flight path, closed her flight plan, brought her home symbolically, returned her back to Oakland where she intended to go. She is one of the world's greatest mysteries, not only because she set off, on a big mission that was such a big part of our history, huge publicity. She was the only female to ever receive a ticker tape parade in New York City. And people were in love with her. They loved what she stood for. She stood for passion for adventure, the personal pursuit of excellence, and also exceeding people's expectations of what she was capable of. And when I think about that photo shoot, standing next to the airplane, and having that gentleman doubt me not once, but twice, 3 times, looking inside the airplane for the pilot, I'm so glad to stand before you today knowing that I am the pilot. I'm the captain of this mission, flew around the world, and the real reason that I do it is right here. The young girls that I work with. During the flight around the world, we handed out 10 flight training scholarships valued at about $120,000 total. 10 women across the US aged 16 to 18 are now learning to fly because of the flight around the world. And for me, that's what it's all about. The flight was a total success. It was safe. We had no weather issues, and we feel like the world really flew along with us. We used social media to interact along the way. And in the end, my father asked the most beautiful question, the most poignant question of the entire trip. He said, honey, when you get back from this trip, do you think the world will feel like a bigger or a smaller place? And I thought about that a lot along the way. And now that I've flown all the way around the globe, crossed the equator 6 times, I now know that the world is a much, much smaller place than I ever envisioned it to be, but it's so much bigger in terms of its beauty and in terms of its potential. Thank you.